Okay, welcome in and once again. I'm going to continue my 32 and 32 at this time with the Chicago Blackhawks. So as I always do with each team, as I look at their home jersey and their reverse retro, I got to say, I think I'm probably going to hate on quite a few jerseys compared to liking them. I just think when it comes to this reverse retro, it just looks plain Jane. To me, it's almost like a. I'm not trying to disrespect the Blackhawks or anyone that came up with this design, but it just seems like it's just blah. Just has the name on it. Has no flair. There's no flash. Doesn't even have a logo. So to me, it's just like I don't know how I feel about this. Whereas their reverse retro from the 2021 actually had their old logo and had like the Blackhawks in Chicago around the circle. So to me, at least that's somewhat interesting. It's somewhat historical. And this is just I don't know. Maybe at one point they had jerseys with just names on them, and this is kind of like a throwback to that. But yeah, I got to say when it comes to this particular one, not a big fan of this reverse retro. So last season, the Blackhawks finished with 26 wins, 49 losses, and 7 overtime slash shootout losses for 59 points. So their season was in the tank as soon as they pretty much dropped the puck at the start of the last year. So missing out on the playoffs for the third consecutive season. The last time they made the playoffs was in the 2020 bubble when they played the Edmonton Oilers in the best of five. They beat them in 4 games, only to lose to the Vegas Golden Knights in 5 games in the first round of the playoffs. And prior to that, the last time they made it was 2017 when they were swept by the Nashville Predators, and then they missed it in 2018 and 2019. So basically, 5 out of the last 6 seasons they've missed the playoffs. So therefore, it just goes to show the team is clearly on a rebuild and hopefully on their way up sooner rather than later. So let's go over really a couple of signings. They didn't do anything too crazy. They had more trades, if anything, rather than signings. They brought in Tony Donato on a 2-year contract. He's coming over from the Seattle Seahawks, and then they have re-signed. Um, what was it? Philip Kurashev on a 2-year contract. So he is on his way back to the Windy City. So what I'll do is I will take a look at the roster, and then I will make my prediction when it comes to this upcoming season. So let's bring this back. It's a little better glimpse. And we'll take a look and see who is signed, who is yet to resign, and who is heading elsewhere. So Joey Anderson, I'm guessing he potentially has resigned, but hasn't shown on here. Andre Athanasiou, I'm almost 100% certain he is coming back to that organization. Anders Bjork, his contract has expired. He is yet to resign or sign with anyone else. Colin Blackwell has 1 more year left to go on his contract, as does Jason Dickinson. Andreas Eglin, he is now off to the Los Angeles Kings. Mackenzie Entwistle, he has 1 more year left to go on his contract. Cole Gutman has 1 more year left to go on his as well, as does Mark Hardman. So does Tyler Johnson. So does Reese Johnson. Seth Jones has 7 more years left to go on that monster contract. Caleb Jones, as I mentioned previously, he has taken his talents to the Carolina Hurricanes. Wyatt Kaiser has 2 more years left to go on his deal. Boris Katchuk has 1 more left to go on his deal. Jujar Kahira, I don't think he's been signed or re-signed, and I believe it's for pretty obvious reasons. He's had a lot of concussion problems recently, so there's no doubt that that's kind of keeping people from signing someone when they've had a history of concussions. Uh, as I mentioned previously, Philip Kurashev has re-signed with the Blackhawks. Ian Mitchell was traded to the Boston Bruins, and I will get into that, so he is no longer a member of the Blackhawks. Connor Murphy has 3 more years left to go on his contract. Taylor Radish has 1 more year left to go on his deal. Lucas Reichel has 1 more year left to go on his contract as well. Jared Tenorti's contract has expired, but I believe he signed a 1-year, $1.25 million contract, so he'll be there for this upcoming season. Jonathan Toews is not coming back as a member of the Blackhawks. His future and is up in the air at this point, whether he's going to retire or maybe take a year off or take some time off and then potentially join a contender. But yeah, the Blackhawks have made it very clear that he's no longer a member of the team. And Alex Vlasic has 1 more year left to go on his contract. Austin Wagner has still yet to re-sign or sign with anyone. And Nikita Zaitsev has 1 year left to go on his contract. We'll take a look at the goaltending position. Peter Mrazek has coming into his last year of his contract, and Alex Stalock, I believe, has signed with the Anaheim Ducks. So now let's go back to the main menu. Talk about a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then where I see this team by the end of the year. Okay, got the logo back up. Perfect. Okay. All right. So, in my personal opinion, when it comes to the Central Division, there's 3 teams that I think should be a lock to get into that 1 to 3 spot in that Central Division, and those teams are the Avalanche, the Stars, and potentially the Wild. After that, you're left with the other teams that are in the division are the Jets, the Predators, the Blues, the Coyotes, and obviously the said Blackhawks, which I'm looking at right now. So therefore, if the other 3 teams that I mentioned are locked to get in that top 3 in the Central Division, you're looking at 1 team potentially getting into a wild card position out of the 5 that I previously mentioned. So therefore, it's very unlikely that all these teams are going to get into there. So with the drafting of Connor Bedard, the Hawks have definitely turned over a new leaf, out with the old, a.k.a. Kane and Tays, and with the new, with Bedard and friends. They made some trades in the offseason, trading for Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno. I believe adding Hall can help Bedard build up, can help with his developing and playmaking and so on and so forth. Maybe even looking at him as like a leader, because Hall was a number one overall pick many, many moons ago as well. So maybe he can help ease Bedard into the NHL, and being on the same line can certainly help that as well. So if I make my prediction for this upcoming season, I'm going to say the Blackhawks should be on the out rather than being contenders, because I still believe they're still going to be a little ways away. Now, I see them getting more than 26 wins. They could get between 30, 35. I think it's still going to be a tough road to hoe with the other teams, as I mentioned, in that division, because if the top 3 teams that I mentioned prior get into that, there's only, like I said, 1 playoff spot open, because that Pacific division is extremely talented. I can't see just 3 teams getting into that. I can't see just 3 teams from the Pacific getting into the playoffs. I can see at least a split 4-4 between the Pacific and the Central. So you're only looking at, of the 5 teams that I mentioned, only one of those teams possibly competing for a wild card spot. And that could be the Jets, could be the Predators, could be the Blues. I just believe when it comes to the Blackhawks that they'll be missing the playoffs for the 4th consecutive season. Thank you all for tuning in, and until next time, take care.